Hey everyone, it's your girl Smarty here. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the rise of unstoppable queens. Welcome to Black Queen Dominion, where strength, resilience, and revenge meet inspiration. Today I'm sharing a story that began with only $200 in my pocket. A story that started with laughter at my expense, doubt from people I called friends, and disbelief from everyone around me. A story about how a seemingly small amount of money became the key to buying my dream car and changing my life forever. At $200, I was not just underestimated, I was invisible. People scoffed at my ambitions, their eyes rolling when I mentioned wanting more than just survival. They told me that $200 could never make a difference, that dreams like mine were meant to stay dreams. Every sneer felt like a chain trying to hold me back. But what they didn't know is that every doubter, every mocker, and every dismissive smirk fueled a fire inside me. The world may have seen only $200, but I saw potential, possibilities others couldn't even imagine. I remember standing in my tiny apartment, counting the $200 in crisp bills. It wasn't a fortune, but it wasn't nothing either. It was my start. It was proof that I had something to work with, even if the world said I didn't. I closed my eyes and envisioned the life I wanted. I imagined the car I had pinned on my vision board months ago, its polished chrome gleaming under the sun, the sound of its engine purring like a predator in the streets, the pride swelling inside me as I drove past everyone who once laughed at my dreams. That vision became my obsession. That vision became my blueprint. The first step was clarity. I had to understand that $200 was not just money, it was leverage. With it, I could start small, make calculated moves, and let compounding opportunities multiply my effort. I created a plan that others would call risky. I researched markets, trends, and small investments. I spent nights scrolling through opportunities online, analyzing potential returns, and strategizing ways to turn every cent into something greater. While others slept, I worked in silence, sharpening my mind like a sword, preparing for the battle I knew lay ahead. Days turned into weeks, and my $200 became a seed I nurtured with determination. I learned the art of buying low and selling higher, the subtle power of negotiation, and the impact of consistency. Every small success felt monumental. I remember the first profit I made. It was modest, barely enough to feel like a step forward. But it ignited a feeling of validation, a whisper that said, "You're on the right path. Keep going." That whisper became my mantra, a secret I held close, one that kept me moving while the world kept doubting. But life never lets ambition go unchallenged. Along the way I faced setbacks. One day, an investment I had trusted failed, leaving me anxious and questioning if I had overestimated my capabilities. Friends who once mocked me now offered advice, unsolicited and patronizing, their voices dripping with condescension. They said things like, "Maybe $200 was all you were meant for," trying to wrap my potential in the comfort of their low expectations. I felt the sting of betrayal and skepticism, but I refused to let it define me. I reminded myself that every queen faces storms, and storms are meant to test, not stop, the rise. The journey also required sacrifice. Nights that could have been spent in leisure were spent learning, strategizing, and hustling. I became obsessed with efficiency, understanding the value of every minute and every dollar. I watched the sun rise over my laptop as I calculated returns and projected growth. I learned to say no to distractions, to ignore naysayers, and to focus with laser precision on the horizon I had chosen. Every small move built momentum. Every tiny profit became a building block toward a future that no one believed I could claim. Then came the pivotal moment. One particular opportunity appeared like a window in the sky. I could see potential where others saw risk. It was bold, unconventional, and promised a high return, but only if approached with courage and precision. I took a deep breath, reminded myself of the $200 that had started it all, and stepped into the moment with calculated confidence. The result was beyond expectation. The $200 grew slowly at first, then exponentially. Each milestone I achieved was a quiet triumph against the voices that said I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't. The $200 was no longer a figure to mock. It was a testament to vision, strategy, and relentless drive. The car I had dreamed of was no longer a distant fantasy. It was within reach. I could feel it in my bones, the excitement of walking into a dealership knowing that every doubter's laughter was now irrelevant. I knew the moment I sat behind that wheel, polished and pristine, would be a declaration to the world. A black queen had turned mockery into mastery, $200 into dreams and silence into power. But the journey was far from over. While I had conquered the first stage, the world's skepticism hadn't vanished completely. New challenges awaited, new obstacles designed to test not just my financial acumen, but my resilience, patience, and ability to rise above envy and sabotage. Little did they know, every trial was an opportunity, every eye-rolling moment a stepping stone, and every whisper of doubt a reminder that the higher I rise, the louder the crown will shine. The dawn after my first triumph with $200 felt different. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about power, the quiet kind that grows in the shadows while others are busy doubting. My small win had been a whisper to the world, and now it was time for a roar. I didn't need applause, I needed momentum. Every decision I made now was a calculated step toward turning my vision into reality, and nothing would distract me. I began by analyzing patterns and trends that others overlooked. While some were chasing instant gratification, I studied the markets with a patience that bordered on obsession. I learned that true success comes not from luck, but from preparation, observation, and precise action. I immersed myself in financial articles, tutorials, and online forums. I absorbed strategies like a sponge, dissecting successes and failures alike, drawing lessons from both. Every headline about someone striking gold was a reminder that opportunity always exists. It's the person ready to act who seizes it. With each passing day, I refined my approach. The $200 that had once seemed insignificant became a cornerstone. I reinvested the profits from my first wins, taking risks that were measured, not reckless. I diversified. Some money went into stocks, some into small local ventures, and some into innovative online projects that promised growth. It was a balancing act, an intricate dance between patience and audacity, but I thrived in the rhythm. The thrill of watching a small investment blossom into a tangible return was addictive. People around me began to notice the change, though they still didn't understand it. The same friends who had laughed at my $200 were now cautiously curious. Their curiosity came wrapped in skepticism. "Are you sure this will work?" they asked in tones that betrayed doubt more than concern. I smiled to myself, knowing that their questions were no longer about judgment. They were about envy. But I stayed focused because envy and distraction were obstacles for weaker minds, not for a queen whose vision was clear. Alongside financial strategy, I focused on mindset. I realized that investing money without investing in myself was a trap. I read, meditated, and reflected daily. I visualized my dream car, the way it would feel under my hands, the way people's expressions would change when they saw me cruising past, confident and unapologetic. I didn't just want to buy a car. I wanted the life it represented. Freedom, authority, and undeniable proof of what persistence and self-belief could achieve. Every visualization strengthened my resolve. Every mental rehearsal prepared me for the day when my dreams would materialize. Yet the path was not without struggle. Not every investment soared. Some plummeted. Some days ended with losses that made me question the wisdom of my choices. It would have been easy to crumble, to return to the comfort of mediocrity, but I refused. Failure was not defeat. It was tuition. Every dollar lost taught me a lesson more valuable than any guidebook or course. I adapted quickly, analyzing what went wrong, identifying patterns, and adjusting my strategy. My resilience became my secret weapon, my edge over anyone who had ever doubted me. The turning point came when I stumbled upon an unconventional opportunity. It wasn't flashy or widely known. Most people would have ignored it, dismissing it as too small, too obscure, or too risky. But I recognized the potential immediately. I invested strategically, allocating a portion of my growing capital with careful precision. The first few days were tense, each passing hour a test of patience and confidence. I resisted the urge to panic when fluctuations occurred, trusting my analysis and instinct. And then the unexpected happened. The investment started multiplying faster than I anticipated. Numbers on the screen climbed higher and higher, each digit a quiet testament to foresight and courage. Within weeks, the returns far exceeded what I had initially imagined. I watched my small pile of money transform into a figure that made people blink in disbelief. The queen inside me smiled quietly, knowing that this was only the beginning. The transformation wasn't just financial, it was psychological. I noticed a shift in how people treated me. Those who had mocked me, belittled my $200, or whispered that I was destined to fail, now glanced at me with a mix of surprise and hesitation. Their eyes betrayed a newfound respect, tinged with the sting of regret. But I didn't seek validation. The power came from within. I had proven something to myself first, and the world's acknowledgement was just an added bonus. With each new success, I expanded my vision. The dream car was no longer a distant goal. It was becoming inevitable. I began planning not just for the purchase, but for the lifestyle it represented. I envisioned the freedom to move without constraint, the authority to command attention with presence alone, and the satisfaction of a tangible achievement born from grit, strategy, and self-belief. I understood that money was a tool, but vision and persistence were the engines driving the tool forward. By now my story had quietly spread. People who once dismissed me were now secretly tracking my moves, curious how the girl with $200 had become a force to reckon with. Yet I remained discreet. I shared nothing, knowing that silence amplifies power. Every calculation, every reinvestment, every carefully executed strategy was done with precision, unseen by the doubters who had once mocked me. Their surprise would come later, and when it did, it would be undeniable. As the weeks passed, I diversified further. I tapped into online businesses, local ventures, and strategic partnerships. Each step was deliberate, each move calculated, each risk measured. I had learned to embrace uncertainty, understanding that growth only comes when one steps into the unknown with confidence. My mindset evolved alongside my capital. I became not just an investor but a strategist, a visionary, and a force that would not be ignored. The climax of this chapter approached the day I realized that my dream car was within reach. The numbers on my accounts confirmed it. Every sacrifice, every late night, every calculated risk had paid off. The $200 that had been mocked, dismissed, and underestimated had grown into a fortune capable of securing more than just a car. It could buy freedom, respect, and undeniable proof that queens rise when others sleep. Yet I knew the story wasn't finished. The purchase of the car was not the final victory. It was a milestone, a declaration that a new era had begun. While others focused on the small victories, I was already planning for greater heights. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles that would test not only my financial acumen but my strength, patience, and unwavering commitment to my vision. I was prepared. The queen in me would rise again and again, and no one could stop her ascent. The day I decided to claim my dream car was not just a financial milestone. It was a declaration. Every calculation, every sleepless night, every strategy one had executed with precision had led to this moment. I walked into the dealership not with hesitation, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what she had earned. The car gleamed under the showroom lights, polished like the ambition it symbolized. I could feel its energy radiating, as if it recognized that I was the one worthy of taking it home. As I finalized the paperwork, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph. The world that had mocked me for my $200, that had dismissed my potential and whispered doubts behind closed doors, would now witness proof of what persistence and intelligence could achieve. Their laughter was replaced with silence, and that silence had a weight heavier than any insult. It was the kind of quiet that commands respect, the kind that signals to the world, "Underestimate me at your peril." Driving out of the dealership, the engine's purr was music to my ears. Every mile was a testament to strategy, vision, and resilience. People on the street glanced as I passed, some with admiration, some with surprise, and others with envy that they tried to hide. I realized in that moment that success is not just measured by numbers. It is measured by the way the world shifts its gaze, by the way respect is earned without uttering a single word. I didn't need to explain. The car was my voice. The reactions from those who had doubted me were instantaneous. Friends who had once mocked my $200 now approached me with cautious curiosity. Their questions, once patronizing, now carried hesitation. Some tried to compliment, but the words stumbled awkwardly on their tongues, betraying the disbelief that lingered underneath. Others avoided me entirely, unable to reconcile the girl they had underestimated with the woman who now exuded power and autonomy. Every interaction reminded me that their judgment had been their own limitation, not mine. Owning the car was more than a personal victory, it was symbolic. It represented the manifestation of a dream nurtured with patience, intelligence, and unwavering self-belief. I realized that people often fail not because their dreams are too big, but because they are too quick to surrender when challenged. I had turned a modest $200 into a vehicle that others would see and instantly associate with success. And in doing so, I had rewritten the narrative of my life. But the car also became a tool for strategy, not just status. I used it to access new opportunities, to meet people I had once only observed from afar, and to expand my network with precision. I attended events, conferences, and gatherings, no longer as a spectator, but as a queen who had arrived. The car opened doors not because it was expensive, but because it symbolized achievement and ambition. People now recognized that I was someone who could turn a modest start into monumental success, and that recognition became a currency in itself. Yet while some envied, others attempted subtle sabotage. I encountered whispers of doubt from competitors, veiled comments from those who feared my rise. I learned to navigate these dynamics with grace, understanding that true power is silent, strategic, and unshakable. I refused to let petty envy dictate my actions. Instead, I focused on expanding my reach, leveraging every advantage the success of the car had granted me. Each new interaction, each strategic decision, reinforced my authority and elevated my influence. The journey also revealed the deeper value of self-respect. While many were quick to judge, few recognized the discipline and strategy behind the achievement. I had transformed not only my finances but my mindset. The $200 that once defined me as broke had become irrelevant. What mattered was my vision, my drive, and my ability to execute flawlessly under pressure. I had become a master of turning limitations into leverage, skepticism into motivation, and ambition into tangible results. With every mile driven, I reflected on the path that had brought me here. The losses, the mockery, the sleepless nights, all were part of a narrative that now culminated in undeniable success. I realized that the car was not an endpoint but a milestone, a marker of resilience and proof that a queen's strategy can outlast doubt, mockery, and fear. It symbolized that starting small does not mean staying small, and that vision backed by action can transform perception, influence, and reality itself. The reactions of others were telling. Some reached out with envy thinly veiled as curiosity, hoping to understand the secret to my rapid rise. I knew the secret was simple yet profound: patience, strategy, discipline, and the refusal to allow others' doubts to shape my self-perception. Others tried to mimic my methods without understanding the underlying mindset, only to fail or stagnate. I realized that success is not merely about actions. It is about the intention, vision, and consistency behind those actions. The car also became a metaphor for power. Each time I drove, I reminded myself that material possessions are not vanity. They are reflections of effort, intelligence, and persistence. They are proof to oneself that dreams are valid, achievable, and worthy of pursuit. Every time someone looked my way with disbelief, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Not from arrogance, but from the knowledge that I had turned ridicule into reverence, $200 into a dream realized, and doubt into undeniable proof of potential realized. I realized the importance of legacy. The story of $200 transforming into a dream car was not just about money. It was about teaching a lesson in resilience, intelligence, and ambition. I understood that my journey could inspire others, particularly those who felt underestimated, dismissed, or invisible. My story became a blueprint, a demonstration that no dream is too big when paired with strategy, courage, and relentless commitment. And yet, the world was not finished testing me. With success came new challenges: larger stakes, bigger decisions, and higher visibility. I knew that acquiring the car was not the end of the journey. It was a stage in a larger narrative of influence, power, and dominance. I prepared myself mentally for the next phase, knowing that true queens are not defined by a single victory, but by their ability to rise continuously, transform challenges into opportunities, and inspire awe with every calculated move. The dream car was no longer just a symbol, it was a key. With every polished mile driven, it unlocked opportunities that had once been out of reach, opportunities that would allow me to turn the momentum of $200 into something far greater. An empire built on strategy, ambition, and undeniable presence. I realized that wealth isn't just about accumulation. It's about leverage, influence, and the ability to create multiple streams that feed each other while compounding over time. I started by turning attention into action. The car had made a statement that I was a force to be reckoned with, and people began approaching me with propositions, partnerships, and ventures that previously would have been inaccessible. but I had learned to discern carefully. Not every opportunity was worth pursuing. Some were traps, others distractions. My approach was methodical. I evaluated potential returns, risks, and strategic alignment with my long-term vision. Every decision was calculated and every move was deliberate. Investments now became larger, more sophisticated. I explored emerging markets, small businesses with untapped potential, and digital ventures that offered exponential growth. I understood that scaling wasn't about doing more blindly, it was about doing the right things with precision. I applied the same principles that had grown $200 into a car: patience, observation, strategic execution, and relentless follow-through. Each success reinforced the mindset that had carried me this far, while each setback became a lesson to refine my methods further. Networking became a weapon of influence. I attended high-profile events, business gatherings, and online forums where deals were made behind closed doors. The dream car opened doors literally and figuratively. It was the silent proof that I knew how to achieve, execute, and dominate. People began to recognize that I was no ordinary player. I was a strategist, a queen who could transform small beginnings into monumental results. Some tried to undermine me with doubt, but I moved with discretion, letting actions speak louder than words. Alongside financial expansion, I invested in personal growth. I studied negotiation, leadership, and marketing. I refined my communication, sharpened my intuition, and cultivated a presence that demanded respect. The car had been the first public signal of success, but the empire required intellect, poise, and foresight. I understood that wealth without wisdom is fragile, while wisdom without action is wasted potential. The synthesis of both became my formula for scaling influence and control. Meanwhile, those who once mocked me were now scrambling to keep up. Friends and acquaintances who had dismissed the $200 watched as my net worth multiplied, as ventures flourished, and as my visibility increased. Some tried to imitate my strategies, failing to grasp that execution without mindset is empty. Others approached with envy thinly disguised as advice, unaware that their judgment had already been neutralized by my consistent results. I let them watch, knowing that their disbelief only amplified the satisfaction of my progress. By now, my financial portfolio had diversified far beyond anything I had imagined when I held $200 in my hands. Investments in local startups, online ventures, and strategic partnerships created a web of revenue streams that fed into each other, compounding growth in ways that others could only dream of. Every choice was intentional, every reinvestment deliberate, and every risk calculated. I had transformed not just my financial reality, but my approach to opportunity itself. The dream car had served as both motivator and symbol. It reminded me daily of what vision combined with discipline could achieve. Yet the car was never the end point, it was the spark. I began exploring ways to multiply influence, to leverage visibility into wealth, and to scale impact. Mentorship, collaborations, and strategic alliances became tools to expand not just my wealth but my reach. I realized that a queen's true power lies not in what she possesses, but in how she amplifies her influence across networks, industries, and communities. Challenges did not disappear. Competition intensified, new obstacles emerged, and some tried to create chaos to test my resolve. But the empire-building process had strengthened my resilience. I had learned to anticipate threats, adapt strategies, and move with grace under pressure. Every challenge became an opportunity to refine my methods, and every test reinforced the mindset that had allowed a mere $200 to blossom into wealth, influence, and authority. As I scaled the empire, I never lost sight of my original mission: to prove that a queen cannot be underestimated. Each deal closed, each venture launched, and each partnership formed was a testament to the power of foresight, discipline, and relentless drive. I understood that influence grows exponentially when rooted in consistency, vision, and strategic execution. My success was no longer a secret. It was a blueprint for others, a living example that underestimated potential can achieve greatness beyond expectation. At this point, the lifestyle had shifted dramatically. I was no longer merely a participant in life. I was an architect. I designed my days with intention, maximizing productivity and strategically deploying resources. The car, once a dream, now served as a tool for mobility and visibility, enabling me to access opportunities that others could only observe from afar. I had become both a strategist and a symbol, a living testament to the transformative power of ambition combined with disciplined action. And yet, as the empire grew, I understood that true dominance is not measured by wealth alone. It is measured by the ability to inspire, influence, and command respect without compromise. I cultivated a presence that radiated confidence, intelligence, and authority. Every step, every decision, and every achievement was designed to solidify not just financial power, but strategic and social influence. The empire was not just a collection of assets. It was a living, breathing manifestation of a queen's vision executed flawlessly. The empire I had built was no longer a quiet secret. It was a force that reshaped perceptions, commanded attention, and demanded respect. Every investment, every partnership, every strategic move had culminated in a reality far beyond the dreams of the girl who once held $200 in trembling hands. The dream car, the stepping stone that had once symbolized possibility, was now a trophy of past triumphs, proof that vision executed with discipline can transform life completely. Those who had laughed at me now approached with a mixture of awe and hesitation. Friends who once mocked my ambition tiptoed around my presence, unsure whether to acknowledge, compete, or learn from me. Critics who had whispered doubt behind closed doors were now silent in public, their disbelief muted by the undeniable evidence of success. Envy lurked in their eyes, but I understood it well. It was powerless when faced with consistency, strategy, and self-assurance. The dissenters had become witnesses to a queen's rise, and the silence they offered was as sweet as any praise. Scaling the empire had taught me a crucial lesson. Influence is as much about perception as it is about achievement. I had leveraged visibility, strategy, and accomplishment to create authority that could not be challenged lightly. The car had been the first signal. Now, every business move, every investment, and every strategic alliance reinforced the narrative that I was a force beyond their comprehension. The queen in me thrived on this truth. Respect is earned silently, and once earned, it commands power. As I expanded, I recognized that true domination comes not just from building wealth, but from creating a legacy. I began mentoring others, sharing insights subtly, and offering guidance to those ready to rise. I realized that my journey from $200 to empire was more than personal triumph. It was a blueprint, a roadmap for anyone who refused to be underestimated. My influence extended beyond finances, reaching communities, networks, and aspiring queens who had once been dismissed, overlooked, or silenced. Yet the journey was never without challenges. New competitors emerged, threats arose, and the visibility I had cultivated attracted both admiration and opposition. Some tried to undermine the empire, spreading false narratives or attempting to exploit weaknesses. But by now, resilience was ingrained in me. Every attack became an opportunity to strengthen, refine, and demonstrate strategic superiority. The queen does not falter under pressure. She adapts, recalibrates, and turns obstacles into milestones. The dream car, once the pinnacle of aspiration, had now become a symbol of authority. Every glance from bystanders, every whisper of curiosity, and every subtle nod of recognition reminded me of how far I had come. I no longer needed to explain my achievements. The car, the empire, and the presence I commanded spoke for themselves. People began to understand that power is quiet, deliberate, and often invisible until it is undeniable. My triumph was not measured by numbers alone, but by the ripple effect it created in the lives and perceptions of others. With each passing day, the empire grew not only in wealth but in influence. I diversified further into ventures that combined profit with impact, understanding that true power multiplies when it touches lives beyond oneself. Every partnership, every launch, and every decision was intentional, designed to reinforce authority, magnify presence, and create a legacy that could not be ignored. I realized that success is not static. It is dynamic, evolving, and amplified when combined with strategic foresight and disciplined execution. By now, I had mastered the art of turning dissent into devotion. Critics became allies, skeptics became witnesses, and those who underestimated me were forced to acknowledge the power of a queen who refuses to be diminished. I understood that influence is cumulative. Every act, every achievement, and every demonstration of competence builds upon the last. The empire was not just a collection of assets. It was a manifestation of vision, strategy, and relentless determination. The psychological transformation was equally significant. No longer constrained by self-doubt or the expectations of others, I moved with a presence that commanded attention effortlessly. Confidence became my currency, discipline my shield, and vision my guide. I no longer reacted to naysayers. I anticipated, prepared, and executed. Every decision was intentional, every action deliberate, and every outcome aligned with a carefully constructed roadmap to influence, authority, and legacy. The climax of the empire-building journey came not in a single event, but in the cumulative recognition of my success. Invitations, partnerships, and collaborations flowed naturally not because of charm alone, but because people understood the weight of strategy executed with discipline. Those who had once mocked my $200 investment now sought insight, hoping to learn the formula behind a queen's rise. Yet, knowledge without execution is meaningless. I had learned this early, and I ensured that the empire remained insulated from those who lacked vision, persistence, and courage. Reflecting on the journey, I recognized that the empire was never about the car, the money, or the visibility. It was about transformation. The girl with $200 had become a woman who could shape circumstances, influence perception, and create opportunities at will. Every milestone, from the first investment to the dream car to the scaling of wealth, was a testament to the power of vision, resilience, and strategic execution. I had learned that underestimated potential can, when nurtured correctly, achieve outcomes far beyond expectation. The legacy I was building extended beyond material achievement. It was a story of empowerment, a roadmap for others to follow, and a declaration that no obstacle, doubt, or mockery can derail a queen who refuses to yield. My empire became a narrative of triumph, proof that starting small is not a limitation but a foundation. Every glance, every whisper, and every measure of recognition reminded me that the power of a queen is not in her possessions, but in her vision, execution, and unwavering belief in herself. And so, as the final chapter of this journey unfolded, I understood the ultimate truth. A queen is never defined by what others say about her. She is defined by her ability to rise, transform, and conquer. The $200, the dream car, the empire, all were milestones in a story of resilience, intelligence, and relentless pursuit of vision. Those who once doubted now witnessed the undeniable proof. Underestimated potential, when harnessed with strategy and discipline, becomes unstoppable power. The queen had risen. The empire was established. And the world, whether willing or not, was compelled to recognize her dominion.